in our ignorance about our own history. How curious, for example, that the First World War is never taught in our schools as an invasion of Iraq. Not all of you are coming with me on that one. That's okay, don't worry. I will say many things in the course of tonight's show that you will not agree with. I will say, for example, people who fly short haul should be ASBO. Climate criminals that you are. I shall call for 100 hours community service for eating fruit out of season. Be calling for a mandatory carbon ration of 10 kilos per person per annum. Arguing that the dissolution of the corporations is the sine qua non of democracy. And that the First World War should be taught in our schools, for the invasion of Iraq it was. I will say many things in the course of tonight's show that you will not agree with. I will say, for example, the First World War should be taught in our schools as an invasion of Iraq. And here's where we began to part company. But I feel that if we retrench back to a position of consensus, we can build outwards from there. So going back to where I believe some consensus to exist between us. Possibly. I am sure many of you, like me, have never been entirely satisfied with the standard explanation we were given at secondary school for the causes and origins of the First World War. The assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. I mean, no one is that popular.
Lovely fella, he helped when my car broke down, and when the DJ didn't show up my sister's wedding, he went home, got his own records played all night, wouldn't take a penny. And every Sunday there he'd be refereeing the disabled basketball.
A somewhat more efficient cause might be the Berlin-Baghdad Railway. Commenced construction in the years leading up to the First World War. The Royal Navy had just switched from coal to oil. German Navy follows suit, but they don't have no oil-producing colonies. No place in the sun. Thus begins Drang nach Osten, the drive to the east, spine of which policy is the Berlin-Baghdad Railway. Now, there's already track laid from Berlin to Constantinople. Of course, it's called the Orient Express. Germans just have to build the last 900 clicks. It's going to take them clear into Baghdad, but there is huge opposition to this project among the major European powers, the Russians, the French, the Dutch, the Belgians, and the British. We're opposed to this for two main reasons. Firstly, we recognize that we cannot compete with the Germans in engineering terms alone, because we know that passengers will simply not accept the Sarajevo to Basra replacement bus service. Secondly, we know once this is built, ain't nothing to stop a Munich businessman getting out of the Baghdad terminus with a Deutsche Bank checkbook, smashing our cartel. So a phony war begins. Churchill, who is Minister for War and Air, dispatches to the Gulf Sidney Riley, who's described in one leading textbook of the period as, I'm quoting now, probably the most famous spy of the early 20th century. Now, call me naive about international espionage, but if you are the most famous spy, you are the worst. And so it proves. Sidney Riley arrives in the Gulf with J-Lo and Beyonce on either arm. The paparazzi are there. Flashbulbs pop. War breaks out because it's a war to defend plucky Belgian neutrality, remember, while the Belgians are pluckily defending Congolese rubber and ivory. The first British regiment to be deployed in the First World War, the Dorset Regiment, goes to Basra, 1914, where it is joined by 51 other British divisions. Now, if you go onto the Dorset Regiment's website, I have way too much free time. Plenty you're gonna read about the 1st Battalion of the Dorsets going to Mons in 1914. Nothing. Not a word about the 2nd Battalion of the Dorsets going to Basra in 1914, and therefore, my friends, I believe we may conclude with some confidence that had Wilfred Owen or Siegfried Sassoon fought by the Tigris or the Euphrates instead of by the Somme, we would never have heard of them. They could have sent truckloads to the front full of nothing but poets. If they'd fought in Iraq in the First World War, we would not know of a single man jack them. Why? There could even have been a 1st Special Poets Battalion. But had it fought in Iraq, we would never have known of its existence, although one can't help feeling that the 1st Special Poets Battalion would have been wiped out quite early on in the hostilities. There you are in the map room of the Turco-German HQ in Najaf, and the general's there saying, if the Special Poets Battalion decides to pitch camp here, they cut our supply lines in two, have access to the strongest partisan militias, all under Iraqi canopy providing a natural defense from aerial bomber. Fortunately, however, they have decided to pitch camp here, where dappled shade falls on rusted farm equipment entwined with bougainville. Near an almond grove where walks a young shepherd boy of unblemished complexion. Okay, I want to take the mood down now, so can you cycle a bit slower? Too slow, take it up a bit. Down a bit, okay, that's it. Okay. And the reason the First World War is not taught in our schools, but the invasion of Iraq it was, is because your good war, your just war, has always been presented as a one-off, a discrete event, no more connected to other wars than consecutive productions in the same musical, because otherwise, all the just war, good cause, humanitarian arguments, they begin to unravel if ever a war is seen to be part of a continuous foreign policy that has remained absolutely consistent for decades. In the 95 years since Mesopotamian oil was first struck at Masjidi Suleiman, and a British lieutenant sent a telegram to the Glasgow office of Burma Oil which read, see Psalm 104, verse 15, line 3, which is, of course... See, now when I did my gig in Texas, the entire audience, as one, roared out, that he may bring out of the earth oil to make a cheerful countenance. In the 95 years since that telegram was deciphered in Glasgow, Britain has been at war with or occupying Iraq for 45 of them. Now, if you're a broadcaster, a journalist, looking for a neutral, objective, analytical, coldly rational, ideologically uncluttered way to describe that reality, the phrase you're looking for will be something about British and American plans to bring democracy to the Middle East. Some kind of psalm singing is called for, some raising of hosannas to our benevolence, which is why